Hello everyone, today I'm going to be talking about Sonic Youth again. If you wanted to see my thoughts about Sonic Youth 1 year ago, you can watch this very subpar video. Unless you consider my cassette videos, I seldom ever mention Sonic Youth, mostly because I'm so preoccupied listening to them that I don't have enough time to write down my thoughts. Now don't worry everyone, I'm not remaking my old Sonic Youth video. That one took me forever. I still get comments every day telling me how wrong I am about Evol and Sister and whatever, man. I changed my opinion on both of those albums. I like them. You'll just have to wait and see until I make a whole dedicated video like I made this one for Dirty. Now, we are going to be talking about pre-Dirty stuff. If you don't give a shit about that, just skip the timestamp. Okay, Sonic Youth was created in 1981 in New York. They sounded like this. Bassist Kim Gordon, guitarist Lee Ronaldo, Thurston Moore, and Bob Burt in the very beginning were the core members of Sonic Youth. Then it was Jim Sclavinos for like a second, and then back to Bob Burt, at least on their debut album. If you remember, it sounded like this. Eventually in 1985, they would recruit Stephen J. Shelley, and this would be their last drummer until 2011. Jesus Christ, Sonic Youth went on. One must wonder how to describe Sonic Youth. The band did as well, so they categorized themselves as something infamously hard to categorize. No wave. Now, even just trying to find like a definition point for this, okay, there are three. We're going to take the one from Thurston Moore first. He claimed to have seen it spray painted on CBGB's 2nd Avenue Theater on 66 2nd Street Avenue before seeing it pressed somewhere later, probably the New York Rocker, which is the premier magazine that popularized the term in the first place, and by no means was No Wave completely obscure. Legendary figurehead of ambient music Brian fucking Eno made a whole compilation for the scene. Basically, he tried to make a well-intended, like, compilation of the whole scene. The scene got mad because there were some kind of glaringly obvious missteps, which soured Brian Eno's relationship with the scene in the late 1970s. However, the actual music of No Wave, if we're going to base it in stylistic form, is minimalism, conceptual art, funk, jazz, blues, punk rock, avant-garde noise, just to name a few of the influences. Now, Sonic Youth came into the scene in the later part of the No Wave zeitgeist, when most of the bands had moved on or disbanded for some reason. However, despite the no wave genre underpinnings, Sonic Youth would persist much longer than the no wave scene. One could say a little too long. But however, for simplicity's sake, we're going to break down Sonic Youth into three pretty distinct eras. 1982 to 1987 saw Sonic Youth at their most ferocious with the publication of Confusion is Sex, Bad Moon Rising, Evol, and eventually Sister, which marked the band's transition from no wave to something more commercially acceptable, but no less defiant. The songs on these albums can range from the most downtrodden, detuned riffs on top of tom-heavy drumming like Brave Men Run off of Bad Moon Rising, to some whacked-out post-punk, Swans-adjacent tomfoolery on songs like Inhuman on Confusion is Sex. Sonic Youth's range of noise was unparalleled except maybe by New York contemporaries, Swans, that I mentioned earlier. Sonic Youth began to relax around the Sister and Evol phases, but then came Daydream Nation. Daydream Nation was released in 1989, which was a great hit at the time. Sonic Youth released an album, reduced the loudness to 20%, increased the number of memorable riffs to like 80. In recent years, the album has achieved cult status, and even if you've heard of Sonic Youth in any form, you've probably heard the main track, Teenage Riot, off this album. Do I agree with Pitchfork's rating? Fuck no. Great album, but it's not nearly as good as Sonic Youth can get, and it's a real shame that some people never listen past this one album. But with the support of a major label touring with Nirvana, the band was set to drop another classic, and they did deliver. Now, I was debating on making just a video on Goo, but my love for this album has waned over time. Also, have you noticed how long it's been since I fucking uploaded a video? It's this. I swear, I've played this album like 1,000 times, and the singles on this album are great. You know, Dirty Boots, Cool Thing, obviously they're classics in their own right, but I don't listen to them on a regular basis. My favorite tracks are Moat, My Friend Goo, Titanium, Exposed, but like Daydream Nation, they strive to make some more frenetic riff-based playing, as opposed to their prior albums, which seem to be like these sluggish 45-minute long, no wave, fucking torture session. But my favorite tracks on here are some of the more noisier ones. When you start to really dig into the deep passages of sound on this album, it really makes you appreciate Sonic Youth as a whole. Kim has the most satisfying parts known to human perception. Thurston Moore and Lee Ronaldo have a perfect balance of dissonance and beauty, something that will culminate perfectly into their 1992 release, Dirty. 100% is the first track on here, which is just... Can we talk about this? Okay, first and foremost, I love the use of guitar and scratching on this song. It's just phenomenal with that 3-note descending line that gives the track the perfect amount of space. And every time I listen to it, I find a new little noise trick I haven't heard before. I love that this song is infinitely replayable. It never gets old. It's only like 2.5 minutes, so you TikTok motherfuckers can't even be complaining unless you just don't like dissonant noise. Can't relate. And in doing research for this video, I found out that the first line is dedicated to Joe Cole, which was the roadie for Black Flag, who unfortunately passed away in a home invasion. He'll pop up later because there's a whole song dedicated to him, but R.I.P. Joe Cole. Most of the song's lyrics are just as they seem, or maybe they're not supposed to be interpreted with that much outside of the opening lines. But my favorite line is, "But all I know is you've got no money, but that's got nothing to do with a good time." Next song is Swimsuit Issue, a Kim Gordon-led song about a senior executive at Geffen Records. Lines like, "I'm just here for dictation, I don't want to be a sensation. Being on 60 Minutes wasn't worth your 15 minutes. And don't touch my breasts, I'm just working at my desk. Don't put me to the test. I'm just doing my best." The scenes depicted are composites of numerous incidents according to Kim Gordon, who penned the song, first being Anita Hill's sexual harassment allegations against Clarence Thomas after the Senate confirmation hearing of the Supreme Court, and the well-publicized case involving Secretary Penny Muck's sexual harassment allegations against Geffen's promotion executive Marco Babineau. At the time, Geffen's senior executive, David Berman, stated that he didn't see the song to be a jab at the corporation and believed it should be included on the album, which was set for that July. "That's perfectly appropriate subject matter for a song," he said. "After hearing the record, the lyric content is in no way something we would consider censoring or telling the writer to change." Gordon was pleased with the company's reaction and said that she hopes attention will not be focused on the Geffen connection at the expense of the larger issue addressed in the song. "Sexual harassment is just the most blatant example of sexism that goes on in any corporation," she says. "I just chose the music industry because that's the world I work in." It really is to Geffen Records' credit that it's the same label where the alleged incident happened that is putting out the song. Gordon says it's sort of unique in that way. The song musically is a very dense barrage of noise and plucky vocal fry. Kim is truly animalistic on the song as she describes these events in simplistic but powerful language. The outro consists of Kim reciting the names of all the models in the March 1992 Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. The man, who is being talked about in this song, is attempting to mold the women around him into fantasy ladies that exist solely for the satisfaction of males rather than seeing them for what they are, exhausted real-life women that just want to finish their job and go home. The swimsuit issue was a notorious example of the media that promoted such a desire for many, and I believe its inclusion at the end was apt. The next song is Teresa Sound World, which begins with Moore and Ronaldo's gently psychedelic guitars and Gordon's smooth bass hooks. As Moore sings the lyrics quietly and calmly, the band gradually coalesces into this point where Steve Shelley, aka Drummer of the Year because he survived Sonic Youth, does nothing but build for the last couple of lines, after which the song suddenly explodes and you can hear exactly what Teresa is experiencing. A white heat hurricane of torrential sound, and it's stunning. Don't skip out on the song just because it's 5.5 minutes. Tension and release of the song is like nothing else. They did it so good that they just do it twice. Like the past couple of songs, I don't really have much to say in the way of lyrics. I could probably come up with some long-winded execution, but it's just atmosphere building to me. Drunken Butterfly is one of the album's more dynamic and aggressive tunes, with Kim Gordon's throaty vocal delivery and strong riffage from Lee Ronaldo and Thurston Moore. The lyrics of the song are directly taken from song titles by the band Heart, according to Sonic Youth's website at least, whose sound definitely impacted the music of Sonic Youth because later on the album, the song Barracuda is played, which is another Heart song. Even if the lyrics were picked at random, I believe the chorus had a political message that might be related to Gordon being the only female in the band, and how women are treated differently in the music industry than men. She has like a whole fucking book about it. This could be a fan approaching the band and saying, "I love you," then glancing at Gordon and wondering who she is, since women are frequently disregarded and undervalued in the music industry. Again, we stan Kim Gordon. We are not this. Shoot is the next, and it's a great story if you want one of the darkest Sonic Youth songs ever. Warning, trigger warning for topics of abuse. I think this song is about a woman who's in an abusive relationship. She finds out she's pregnant and decides to leave. Knowing that she can't just up and leave, she pulls out a revolver, points it at her lover, and decides to ask him for money and the car keys. She eventually kills him. She evolves from the subservient, mistreated girlfriend to an aggressive, self-sufficient woman. In the several phrasings, you hear the same question. Can I have the car keys? Can I have the car, please? Can I have the car right now? Can I have the car, my dear? And then it ends into, I won't be asking your permission to leave. I won't be asking not to have this baby, please. Even with a gun in her grasp, she fails to fully express her independence. There's a line about lipstick where I think it represents her newfound independence. However, I believe she shoots him at the lines of, that was such a surprise, referring to her doing it. Though before shooting him, she says, "I have to bleed." While applying the lipstick, she's still asking for permission to put it on, which is kind of like the cycle of abuse never ends. The next song is much less depressing and a lot more petty, but it's a little easier to stomach. Wish Fulfillment is the next song. It's linked to another song that didn't make the final cut of this album called Genetic. One of my favorite Sonic Youth songs, period. It just happens to be one of the 2 Lee Ronaldo songs that were written for this album, and the first one, which is Wish Fulfillment, was the only one to make it on the proper album. Ronaldo gets left out because his contributions were not taken seriously, and his songs were a lot more poppy than what Sonic Youth was used to, and I guess the media had everything they needed between the 2 heads of the band, Kim and Thurston, so Ronaldo turned into George Harrison, which is basically the idea of this song. Lee has been purposely unclear about who he's talking about, later in interviews just stating it is related to some stuff inside the band, because sometimes Sonic Youth had problems wrapping their heads around the music I brought in. The Wish Fulfillment in the album was never my version of the way it was supposed to sound. It ended up being much more violent than I thought it would be. It is about people who played in bands just to get famous, appear in magazines, all of that versus those who are doing it for the art, thinking about what the audience would think. The song is about some specific people, like, come on, it's about Thurston Moore. The lines, "Shake it baby, come on, scream, did I see your face in a magazine, your doubt, it leaves me sore. I can't stand it anymore." On the more musical side of things, definitely check this one out for its intro. I have no idea what's going on. Like, I'm gonna play a snippet, but like, what is going on? Also, I love that this song is just like a diss against Thurston Moore. Like, imagine being in a band with Thurston Moore and you're just like, fuck it, I'm gonna write a song all about hating this guy. Anyway, next song is the Thurston Moore-led song, Sugarcane. Now, I didn't know this because even though I've heard this song 1,000 times, I never decided to look at what the song is about. To my surprise, it's not actually about cocaine or meth, in like a Velvet Underground or White Heat kind of way. No, it's about Marilyn Monroe. Sugarcane Kowalski is the name of Marilyn Monroe's character in 1959's Some Like It Hot. One of her most recognizable roles, according to the liner notes, this song was inspired by the notion of the emotional contact we feel with celebrities on the edge of our desire to save them. At least according to the band, if you've ever heard the song, I don't know what it is that you're still doing here. It's one of their most recognizable songs. You should be listening to it all the time. For a while, this song was my favorite bass line that they ever did. It's so simple, so unreplicable. The distortion is perfect and the dissonance is satisfying. Sonic Youth has like no bad notes. Orange rolls, angel spit. Gordon sings about a temptress who might be lethal. You ain't her only dance. You better stay away if you wanna last. Kim Gordon is the band's bluntest singer. Sometimes she becomes an otherworldly rage that I love, and in this song, it is on full display. It doesn't sound pretty by any means, but when it does break into something more distinguishable, it's only moments away from being torn apart. Unlike albums like Evol or Sister, there is now less shock for shock's sake and more shock for showing you an image through sound. Orange Rolls, Angel Spit is one of the hardest songs to stomach on first listen, but I don't give a fuck, man. Kim Gordon could scream in my ear all day until I die. Next song is Youth Against Fascism, Hate Song. One of my personal favorite songs because of how blunt it is, and it's 8 verses and 1 refrain. It's the song I hate. Verse 4 and 6 are my personal favorites, but I love that in the beginning Lee and Thurston are both doing really crazy noise scraping, kind of like on 100%, but then around the 3rd and 4th verses they switch into this beautifully ominous riff that plays out for the rest of the song. It's one of the best contrasts on the record. Along with Thurston's amazing lead vocals, this song is just one of the best political songs, and again, this song would be nothing without Kim Gordon, absolutely laying the law down with this bass line. Next is the only song I skip. It's called Nick Fit. Don't get me wrong, I respect songs that are covers on a bigger band's album. This is a punk song, obviously it's like a minute long. I just don't like it. I just skip it every time. Next is On the Strip. This song once again delves into themes of illusion, escapism, and nostalgia. It reflects on a character's desire to remove oneself from their genuine self and their harsh reality. She's skipping school, being a prostitute, doing hella dope and shit. She's being a kid in the 70s. At least at the end she attempts to stop doing it. Whatever, it's a story song. Moi, Kim Gordon. The next song is Chapel Hill, which is a super duper intricately written song about the story of the owner of the Internationalist books in Chapel Hill, Bob Sheldon, who many think was killed by the CIA for promoting progressive and radical action through his bookstores. Not my words, theirs. He was one of the last good things in the scene, along with the Cat's Cradle, which either both stopped existing or moved post-1999, hence the line "now the scene is dead." After a long instrumental break, they come back and say, "Looking away, it's another day, and of course we love you. Radical Man meets the CIA, and we said no. We'll round up the Durham HC kids, the local hardcore kids, and the Char Grill killers." Char Grill is supposed to mean like North Carolina because that's where this university is. "Jesse H. coming to our pit, all ages show." Now this last line is pretty funny with the context and the juxtaposition because Jesse Helms, or Jesse H., was a notoriously conservative Republican North Carolina senator who served in the Senate from 1973 to 2003. Helms was highly critical of the socially liberal University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Now, after hearing all that, what do you think this guy would have been quoted about? The school itself? Take a wild guess. I didn't even want to come close to repeating what he said, so you just know, this guy is not good by any means. The image of Jesse Helms coming into a Sonic Youth show at Chapel Hill and getting beat up by the local gangs and hardcore kids is a beautiful image. Anyways, the next song is a little bit of a downer, but it's a tribute to Joe Cole, who I mentioned earlier on 100%. A friend of theirs who was murdered in a robbery in Venice, Los Angeles, in front of his friend and roommate Henry Rollins. Here's a quote from Kim's book, Girl in a Band. "When Henry called me to tell me about Joe, I burst into tears. I didn't get over it for a couple years, to be honest. The senseless random act of violence against someone so full of life and innocence was mind-blowing, and I hated Los Angeles for a long time after that. I wrote the song JC about Joe, while Thurston wrote 100%. It was hard to sing without tearing up." The song has some absolutely crushing lines like, "A second here, and then you're gone, quicksand, quicksand, all around. You're walking through my heart once more, don't forget to close the door." I don't listen to the song often because it's a masterful tribute to somebody's dead friend, and while it's a great Sonic Youth song, it's a downer. Like, I just can't listen to it. If you want to hear basically some of the best guitar writing on the entire record, well, then it's the next song. Just one riff after another. Purr is my favorite deep cut, even though it's played a lot during 1991 when they were showing off Chapel Hill and Orange Roll's Angel Spit. But this one is a cut above the rest. I don't give a shit about the lyrics. I'll look at them. Let's see. Yeah, no, they don't say anything. But it just has some of the most satisfying guitar lines. I don't want to play any clips because I'll probably get copyrighted, but like, this is the song. Okay, last song. Creme Brulee. So Thurston and Lee are just fiddling around with an amp while Kim plays in an alternate tuning and sings dejectedly about me and you burning in the summertime. I just love one of the last lines. "Last night I dreamed I kissed Neil Young. If I was a boy, guess it would be fun." And then the last line is, "I'm so happy, we're just friends." The line rings out kind of eerily, and if you know how Thurston and Kim will become, it kind of works as a perfect closer to the album, and it is the technical end to the album. If you have the disc 2, which came out in the deluxe version, it technically counts 4 songs on this side of the album, those being Stalker, Genetic, Hendrix Necro, and Destroyed Room. And I'm going to talk about all 4 of them because they are really good songs. Stalker is the first one, and what is it with people making songs about stalking people? Like, just go home and have a smoke. Anyway, I'd like to think that this song is about, like, you know, a Tarkovsky film or something. Out of all of the 4 songs, this is my least favorite because it is a little bit generic, but the next song is Genetic. That was a terrible... Genetic is the next song I mentioned during Wish Fulfillment, and yes, this is one of my favorite Dirty songs, and that's saying a lot. And in my opinion, I believe that this song is probably indirectly somehow linked to sex, because if you look at it, okay, I guess the Genetic kiss can refer to, like, you know, I'm not going to say it on YouTube, guys. You guys can use your mind. Whether it's Lee or the character in the song, I'm not sure, but your genetic kiss to me, I'll live inside of you, can be, you know, a few possible references there. Just read through the lines. Also, there's one more later, just little stabs of happiness. Come on. But this song is so good. I love the beautiful interplay between Lee's voice and the guitars. Like, they just never used him, like, in the band for nothing. Hendrix Necro is next, and this song, man, Kim will never be a free woman as long as she's with this Thurston guy. I mean, it seems pretty obvious in hindsight, but this song is literally Kim Gordon hating on Thurston Moore. This is not canon, I'm just making fun of Thurston. My favorite bit is when she says shake, don't shake, and there's like little whistles and like pots and pans banging around. It's like very childish, so it's almost like putting the context of the lyrics into this childlike, you know, because it's probably a man telling this woman not to shake around or something. So it's like, oh, he's just being a dumb child, you know? And I love that juxtaposition. Alright, we're gonna talk about my favorite song. It's called The Destroyed Room. I love this song, man. Ever since I heard it, Kim Gordon allegedly wrote it about her friend Jay Mascis from Dinosaur fucking Jr. Apparently she wrote it about his room. It was performed on the Goo Tour, and a live instrumental version called The Bedroom was included on the Dirty Boots single, as well as a demo called Can Song, and the Goo Deluxe Edition has a proper studio version of it, but there's like no vocals. This proper studio version was included on the B-sides of Youth Against Fascism and later as a bonus track on the Dirty Deluxe Edition. Despite the fact that Sonic Youth's compilation of B-sides and rarities is also called The Destroyed Room, it doesn't appear on that compilation. Both names are based on the 1978 photograph by Canadian artist Jeff Wall, which also serves as the compilation cover. Anyway, this song is such a satisfying little like coalescence of the super dissonant lead guitars followed up with like the most ear-piercing chorus. Kim Gordon's strained vocals work really good on it. If there's any song that you walk away from this video, let it please be this one, because this was the one that basically inspired me to make this entire 30-minute long video. And with that, that brings us to the end of this video. It's been Sonic Youth. You have been bestowed with the Sonic truth. Be wise.